we're standing in the Learning Center building, and this room space that we're in is the first space that was built to be formally for Merry Lea in terms of its program back in 1972. So very early thinking of what needed to happen here. But I think more importantly, it's good to see that Merry Lea really is land. So at the very greatest core, if I'm to define what Merry Lea is, it's land. And so this map shows all of the 1,189 acres of land outlined in the red boundary. And we're here at the Learning Center building itself. And you can see how it branches out into these different areas and many different ecosystems that make this up. This particular parcel of ground, about 80 acres, was the first purchase done back in 1964, which it's an interesting time in history to think about as well, because the whole kind of caring about the earth environmentally was just emerging at that point. And so while we don't have a lot of writing about what Lee and Mary Jane were thinking at the moment, we do know that they wanted to get people connecting to nature because they understood a sense of loss that people were not connecting as well as they had. And they, right after buying this in 1964, they did get the Audubon Society to come in and do a feasibility kind of master plan development thing. And they did that in 1965 and helped to kind of articulate what are the ways you can involve people. So environmental education, trails, learning experiences, people experiencing nature through camping. So an indicator of like that very direct connection. They had ideas about even some sustainable farming concepts, wildlife planting, so like native species, etc. And so in that original 80-acre map that they had done, they were actually showing many of the things that we're doing today, which I find fascinating. Like, so to have this long trajectory of a vision that's being developed and worked on, and we've been able to enter the stream of that vision and magnify it, expand it, take it off in different directions. But by and large, that core just runs straight through, which has been very energizing to me. And even as we work at longer term thinking and strategic planning here at Merry Lea, we will go back to that original thinking and be reminded that that's the trajectory that we're on. So from that period, then Lee and Mary Jane continued to buy other parcels of ground, and they started Merry Lea as a standalone nonprofit private foundation or private organization, and continued with a board. They hired a director, and then by the late 70s, they felt they needed to be somehow connecting to a larger vision and a larger institution. And higher education was what they felt needed to be the way to do that. So in 1980, this ended up being donated to Goshen College and has belonged to Goshen College since that time. We've used this land, much of it formerly farm ground, not the greatest of soils for farming, but have used the land and the forests and the wetlands as part of an informal trail system for people to come to, doing lots of environmental education, doing restoration projects on the landscape. So here, this whole section that was originally corn and beans and hay crop rotation is now all prairie. And savannas have been developed up in here and down through here, and wetlands have been developed throughout the landscape, which are representative of what would have been here at an earlier period of time, like pre-settlement time periods. So this palette, or palette in the sense of all the different ecosystems of Northeast Indiana being represented, so that makes it a great tool for learning and restoration, and also the concept of recreation of body and spirit. So being actually out there in the landscape whether you're a scientist, an educator, or a casual hiker, something happens to you as a being to be out in this context.